Number 8. Sleepy Wayne. Wayne Rooney has had his fair share of controversies over the years, but one in July 2021 really takes the cake. The England and former Manchester United star has always had a knack for partying, though these days, it seems like he overestimates his ability to hold his alcohol. In July 2021, he was still managing Derby County, and apparently, they'd just lost a preseason match to Salford. If you know anything about soccer, you'd know that that doesn't bode well for the start of the season. Well, it seems like Rooney took this loss to heart, since after it, he headed straight to the China White Club in Manchester to console himself. While there, he got so drunk that he lost his grip on reality. The married dad of 4 essentially blacked out, and when he woke up the next morning, it was at a cheap motel nearby. This wasn't the issue. The real problem was that apparently, he'd spent the night partying with 3 different 21-year-old women. And guess what? There were photos and videos of him getting up close and personal with them. One picture showed Rooney waving his arms in the air while holding up a glass of wine, while another showed the superstar passed out in bed with 2 women in their underwear making peace signs, captioned, "Sleepy Wayne." And even though Rooney left angry after waking up, it was already too late. The photos were all over social media. In fact, he said he was afraid of being blackmailed by the girls over the photos, so he filed a complaint with the police. Not to mention his wife, Colleen, also left him for a bit and took the kids with her on a vacation. Probably not the United star's best moment. Number 7. Revenge. In May 2019, a Florida woman was arrested for stealing a man's phone and sharing photos of his privates on social media for money. But there's more to this story. 24-year-old Brianna Dean was a bartender in Florida and had recently broken up with 26-year-old Christian Bellinger Lepinin. At first, she was charged with extortion for stealing his phone, sending intimate photos to his social media followers, and then demanding cash in order to stop. But guess what? Christian was arrested at her home the same day. Turns out, there are indeed 2 sides to every story. Dean claimed she was in an abusive relationship and her ex had broken into her house. What's more, she denied extorting him and sharing the photos online. In fact, according to her, he was the one who gave her his device as a replacement after hers broke. Also, the day they were both arrested, he'd apparently pried open one of her windows and entered her home around 6 in the morning. Not to mention, reports added that he stood over Dean laughing at her and even pushed her into a wall at one point. He was eventually caught hiding behind a nearby bush. Funnily enough, it seems like the former couple got arrested at the same time for entirely different reasons. Turns out, they've both got extensive criminal records. Christian, for example, has been previously charged with driving under the influence, disorderly conduct, and domestic battery. While Dean's criminal history includes 3 separate cases of domestic battery and a bunch of traffic violations. So whether she actually posted the nudes and blackmailed him or not, one thing's for sure. They were definitely a match made in heaven. Number 6. Toxic New Girl. When a Dublin woman got a call from someone claiming they had her sex tape, she laughed it off thinking it was a joke. But when they started describing it in intimate detail, everything suddenly got serious. 31-year-old Alexandra Ryan is a show business writer and the founder of Goss.ie, an online gossip website, and all it took was one phone call to derail her life. The writer was in Greece with her sister when she got a flurry of missed calls. When she answered it, it was the new partner of a man she'd previously slept with. Now apparently, this woman always seemed to have an issue with Ryan, just since she'd slept with her boyfriend in the past. This wasn't a call to throw insults though. Ryan was being blackmailed. The caller claimed she was looking at her sex tape, saying how she didn't look good at all. And of course, not knowing what she was talking about, Ryan laughed it off. But then, the woman started describing everything vividly, which confirmed that Alexandra had been filmed without her consent. She couldn't believe what just happened to her. Her life had been turned upside down. In fact, when she called the man she'd slept with to confront him, he admitted to taping her. Here's the real kicker though. Everyone knew there was a sex tape of her. She got texts from friends about it and lived in constant fear that it would be leaked to the public at any moment. Things got so bad that she turned to alcohol to cope with the anxiety. Years later, she got calls from total strangers blackmailing her over the tape too, with most of them wanting money in exchange for not posting it. However, she did eventually report it to the police and finally breathed a sigh of relief, thanks to the Harassment and Harmful Communications Bill passed back in 2020. Number 5. Blackmail couple. Now, we've all heard of a jealous man blackmailing his ex-girlfriend with intimate photos. This West Virginia couple, though, started a chain of crimes together. 27-year-old Rochelle Marie Weiss and her 32-year-old husband Jason wanted some easy money in 2013, so they targeted an unsuspecting woman, Shelley Locke. Apparently, Jason was a smooth talker, since, well, he somehow managed to lure Shelley into his trap and exchange sexually explicit messages and photos with him. And just in case you're wondering, this wasn't a real relationship. It was all a scheme devised by him and his wife. When they had a stash of evidence, they threatened to give the images to Shelley's husband if she didn't send money. Shelley used to work as a cashier at Bethany College and didn't make enough money to pay. Plus, she couldn't talk to her husband either. She was in a tight spot. So the woman went to the absolute last resort. She embezzled money from the college to pay the couple. She sent the pair $1 million. Just like that, the Weisses made a fortune overnight, which they used to buy several vehicles, including a Chevrolet Camaro, an SUV, and pain meds. Their scheme didn't last for very long though, since Locke was caught. The victim pleaded guilty to embezzlement and falsifying accounts, and this in turn brought the couple into the picture. As a result, Rochelle was sentenced to 24 months in prison, while her husband was given 63 years. So literally everyone involved got screwed. Talk about a total mess. Number 4. Supermarket bomber. In 2001, a failed businessman caused mass panic when he threatened to bomb a supermarket if shoppers didn't hand over thousands in cash. 51-year-old Robert Dyer was a failed businessman and had been strapped for cash. But after reading a bunch of blackmailing stories in an old copy of Reader's Digest, he came up with the perfect crime. He started using an alias and sending letters to Tesco bosses, saying he'd blow up the stores if they didn't send him club cards with money. What's more, he wanted to be the only one with the correct PIN numbers. Of course, the retailer didn't pay much attention to the threats. Little did they know, though, that Dyer was ready to turn things up a notch. He started calling the supermarket's customers and even sent an explosive package to an elderly couple. While it did explode, they were luckily not injured. And obviously, this was when the cops decided to step in. They searched for him for weeks and couldn't find a single trace, until a package in the area randomly caught fire one day. Turns out, it contained one of Dyer's explosive letters that had prematurely gone off. From that point on, the police started a round-the-clock surveillance campaign on the postal box it came from, hoping he'd use it again. And that's exactly what happened. After narrowing their list down to a few suspects, the police finally got their man. It was Dyer, using the box before heading down to buy fuel. This is where he made a rookie mistake. He used a check to pay, revealing his name and address. The police soon raided his home, found the letters with his alias, and arrested him. Dyer was sent to jail for 12 years. Number 3. Botched robbery. In August 2017, Queensland police received multiple reports of a murder in the area, but it was actually revealed to be a botched extortion attempt. 47-year-old Donna Steele was a mother of 2 who lived in the Cooktown area. Apparently, she had associates involved in drugs, meaning she was walking with a big target on her back, since anyone could blackmail her. That's exactly what 27-year-old Matthew Ross White thought too. For him, she was an easy target. Not only was she well off, but she'd also probably pay if her life was at stake. So he hatched a plan and broke into her house. Now here's the deal. This wasn't a robbery since he wasn't exactly stealing money out of a safe. It was a clear case of extortion. He asked her to pay £20,000 to keep his mouth shut. Little did he know, Donna wasn't the type of person to take threats sitting down. The minute White knew he wasn't getting the money and was going to be reported to the police, he panicked and turned to violence. He strangled Donna as she said, "I can't breathe." And just like that, she was dead. White was a stone-cold killer. While the suspect was arrested, With everyone assuming it'd take long for his trial to wrap up, he surprisingly confessed to the murder on the second day, saying, "I was the one that done it." He was then given life in prison. Number 2. The Sextortioner. In 2016, a Bristol man flirted with a woman he'd met online. Little did he know that he was walking right into her trap. The man, who was in his 20s at the time, was apparently approached by a 23-year-old woman who went by the names LaBelle Nick and Nicole LaBelle 121. She told him she was a French florist who lived in London and fancied him. And just like that, the man fell head over heels. At first, it was just casual texts, but of course, it didn't take long for things to dial up. The woman started encouraging him to engage in sexual actions over video calls, and they kept these shenanigans up for a while. Sadly for the man, though, he was being recorded. Admittedly, this has kind of become a common scam these days, but remember, this was 2016, and the fact that she also reciprocated on video call gave her a small degree of authenticity. Of course, after recording a bunch of videos of the man performing sexual acts, she showed her true colors. She demanded money in exchange for not leaking everything, but it turns out he wasn't going to give in to her demands. Still, it went pretty badly for him once he refused to pay up. The woman straight up published the X-rated videos online. This led the police to issue images of her as they warned other men not to fall for the same scam, though they didn't actually catch her. Number 1. Sticky Situation. In 2018, an Oxford woman lied about her age, sent explicit images to a man, and then threatened to call the police on him unless he paid her. Courtney Jade Mildenhall, who's now 21, managed to extort over £14,000 from the man in his early 20s over a 5-month period. Apparently, she started talking to him on Snapchat and entered into an agreement where he'd pay her for explicit pictures. It's also worth noting that she'd told him she was 18 back then. When he found out she was actually 17 a few months later, he immediately cut all contact and stopped talking to her. But unfortunately for him, it was already too late. Mildenhall had him in her trap and told him she'd gone to the police. So unless he started sending cash her way, she'd send him behind bars. What's more, she claimed she needed the money to pay off some loans, get a hair transplant in London, and buy designer clothing. And that, of course, sent the man into a spiral of depression, so much so that he considered taking his own life. Not to mention, he had to take out loans and ask his parents for money to meet her demands. In the meantime, she was posting multiple selfies with his wads of cash. Eventually, she was caught and pleaded guilty to a single count of blackmail, saying she didn't know about his mental health struggles. Plus, the court also ordered her to make reasonable attempts to compensate the man and not contact him again. Thanks for watching. Have you ever fallen for a scam like this? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on The Bad Badger.